Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 152nd week of Justice Southbury's peaceful rallies in favor of racial justice and social justice. We have a couple of great speakers today, and I'm going to get right to them. First of all, most of you know Sandy Gold, either from here or from other Southbury issues. Some of you know Sandy Gold from birth, including having watched her win numerous public speaking awards as an extraordinarily talented teenager. It's now a couple of years later, but please welcome back Sandy Gold.
Is this okay? All right.
Perfect.
Several weeks ago, I asked Rick if I could speak today in commemoration of this week's Holocaust Remembrance Day. It was difficult deciding what to say. I am not a Holocaust scholar, but I have put together some facts and thoughts. I have been aware of the Holocaust, also called the Shoah, since I was a young child. My brother and I learned at an early age that we were named for our paternal grandparents who perished in the Holocaust in Białystok, a town in Poland. We knew our father left Poland in 1937 at the age of 21 to come to New York, ostensibly to attend college, and that his younger sister arrived in 1939 at the age of 16 on the last boat from England before the war broke out. Their parents and grandparents remained in Europe and died. Many of our friends and family growing up recounted relatives for whom they were named, families left behind. I questioned myself, did I want to speak of this today? Did I want to elaborate on the horror of World War II's events, on the Nazi tactics and Hitler's plan for the final solution, or the familiar number facts that 6 million Jews were killed and 5 million soldiers and civilians died in the war, or that the Holocaust was a response to anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany, Europe, and worldwide. Anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews, is centuries old. The current rise in anti-Semitism in the U.S. and worldwide is well documented. The FBI compiles hate crime statistics. The Anti-Defamation League conducts massive research. Holocaust museums abound, and many states, including Connecticut, mandate or offer Holocaust education. While the museums try to teach morality in a secular society, they often don't teach about anti-Semitism. Until the Holocaust deniers gained a loud voice, we could agree that Nazism was evil and the Nazis slaughtered innocent victims. Teaching the Holocaust was to activate moral reasoning in students, to teach them to be good people, not necessarily to teach about anti-Semitism. Today it is felt that one of the best practices of teaching the Holocaust is to focus on individual stories, hearing from survivors and victims in their own words. Defining survivors is multi-layered. There are those who saw rising anti-Semitism and the Nazi movement growing in Europe and were able to leave, like my father. There are those who remained, were imprisoned in concentration camps, and lived through them and the other horrors. Some staying in Europe after the war, or leaving for the U.S., Israel, or other countries who would take them. And there are those who hid, like the familiar Anne Frank story, or were smuggled out by righteous Gentiles or humanitarian organizations. But survivors are aging. Those who are able have taken their mission to visit schools and tell their stories. Soon, none will be left. In 2015, the University of Southern California Shoah Foundation, a Holocaust testimony archive founded by Steven Spielberg, filmed a handful of survivors and turned their testimony into holograms for use by museums. Keyword artificial intelligence allows the holograms to respond to questions from a live audience. It's a powerful tool, and the questioners are comfortable with the holograms. There are countless survivor stories published today. One that I would encourage you to read is Art Spiegelman's Mouse, A Survivor's Tale, a 2-book graphic history documenting his mother's and father's terrifying story in Hitler's Europe. You may have heard it was recently banned in Chattanooga, Tennessee's school district. Okay. These are the 2 volumes if anyone wants to borrow it. They're graphic stories. Oh, thank you. Yes, got it? Okay. Here is a branch of Art Spiegelman's family tree, showing the family at the start of World War II and at the end. The purple lines depict those relevant members of the family who died before the war, his grandparents and others. 68 members of his family are depicted on this side, alive before the war, and the 13 remaining at the end of the war. All of the green are those who died during the war, from 68 to 13, mostly his cousins. Art's parents had one son, I don't know if you can see it, born in 1937, Richelieu, who died in 1943. You can see here after the war he is missing. Art was born after the war when his parents came to the U.S. While that 6 million figure of Jews who were killed is 6 million individuals, you can see that whole families of European Jewry were wiped out. To my knowledge, my family's story is simpler. Most of my father's aunts and uncles arrived in America in the 1920s and early 30s. My father did not talk much of his history, and I never asked why his parents did not come. But my younger sister recalls learning that they stayed to take care of elderly relatives who could not travel the long distance. Why did they stay while other relatives fled? Whose decision was that? There is no one to ask. His parents, grandparents, and an uncle were burned alive in their town's synagogue in the summer of 1943 when the Nazis liquidated the Bialystok Jewish ghetto. Liquidated is the Nazis' term. I've covered a lot in a simplified manner. Let me tell you how our congregation, B'nai Israel, and many others weekly commemorate the Holocaust, the Shoah. When we weekly memorialize our own relatives on the anniversary of their death, and we say Kaddish, a prayer that exalts and extols God, we also name 6 of the 6 million and say Kaddish for them, as they are our own. Many do not have relatives to do so. Not to trivialize their memory, but saying Kaddish for 6 people weekly is 216 per year. It will take 19 years to memorialize each of them. For me, the goal of Holocaust education and Yom HaShoah is to remember, somewhat passive, to never forget, more active, and to take action. I believe that Justice Southbury affords us this opportunity for many populations, events, and issues. Thank you.